Good afternoon, everyone. I am Elton Furlaneto, and we are here for another act of our activities of literary talks, conversations about contemporary literature. And today we are going to have a very special guest, Marcia Shury. I'm going to read a brief introduction of our guest, and I'm taking her description, her author bio from Nonfiction Authors Association. And here it says, Marcia Shury was born in Guyana. She is the mother of one daughter. She has spent a large portion of her adult life living in foreign lands, including Italy and Bermuda. Although examined by several specialists in the field of ear, nose, and throat over the years, it has never been conclusively stated that she's deaf. Without clear diagnosis, she continues to work extra hard to overcome her baffling handicap. A devout believer, she believes that in order to love another, one must first themselves, um, no matter the challenges. Love themselves, no matter the challenges. In addition to caring for her family, she is an active member of the Toastmasters Club and also an avid runner who have run the New York City Marathon and many other races. So, Marcia, thank you for being with us. The group, Daniel, Mavi, Marina, Giovanna, and Thais, will be the ones conducting these questions, okay, the interview.
Now, was alive, but I don't even know if he let her alive. If he's still alive right now.
Hey there, guys. Good afternoon to you all. And hello, Professor. It is an incredible honor to welcome you to our live. Amazing talking and meeting you, a fellow writer, and from another nationality. So please be welcome to our live. So, guys, now we will begin our literary talk, a program of lives and talking with authors, writers from all over the world. Okay? So, Professor, we would like to start with a question. Okay? My first question is how was the transition between how was the transition for you from a writer I'm sorry, a reader? How was the transition to a writer? How did you become a professional writer? I'm sorry, writer.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. That's a very interesting question. Um, I've always basically started by writing poem. So for me, becoming a professional writer, it was kind of easy. I like to say that inside of each and every one of us, we have a story. You know, sometimes you may be in a conversation with someone and they're asking you about your life and something clicks and you say, I think I should write that down. You know, maybe you had an experience with life and you'd be like, I think I should write that down. So I was just basically jotting notes, ideas. People were asking me to write poems for them. There's a form of poem called an epigram. And it's like basically I can take like your name, say Mavi, and I would be like, M is marvelous, A is awesome, V is for very generous, I is for intelligent, and there you go. She has a poem with her name. So that was easy to do. But when it comes to the writing word, you kind of have to like get someplace quiet. But I actually started in a church, believe it or not. I was in church a Sunday and the pastor was preaching and he just basically said that let your strength be something that others can see. And I just start writing. I'm going back to my memory. I remember this day in so and so, and that's how I start writing my book. And he's preaching, and the words is just flowing. So to me, it's easy when you get into the habit of, like maybe poem, maybe essays. You have to think for yourself, and you just have the words in your head. Just put it on paper and then let it flow.
Uh, Nice. You said that your experiences is what inspired you to write, but there was some author that you take inspiration
But they all feel
of,
like if
some
you do
important
like
art
reading, so
authors
all these
that
people they all got in common, they
help
all
you
feel
to
like
build
if it's an
your
opportunity
style
to be
of
by my
writing.
side, and I need to read it. So
Well, to
anybody
answer
that
that question, I love reading. So because of my love for reading, I as you know, I come from Guyana, which we are basically neighbors, but I'm just in the US now. You are our neighbor, Brazil. Yes, you are. Guyana, British Guyana, right next door to you. And we sometimes have what is like rolling blackouts. I don't know if you guys experience blackouts. The electricity company lights goes off, and you have these book projects that you have to do in school. You have to read X amount of book, and then you have to write something like that. So I love that in the Caribbean we had a wide selection of authors who basically use the places that they grew up and turn it into a novel. And those were honestly my inspiration. Now I will ask you a question. Have you ever heard about the movie To Serve With Love? The movie is called To Serve With Love. Any one of you ever heard about that movie?
No, what is it about?
No, I haven't.
It was set in England. And the novel was actually, before it became a movie, the novel was actually written by a Guyanese author called E.R. Braffett. And then he went to England and they turned that into a movie. And it was basically about a black, the protagonist of the story was basically like black, and then he had a white girlfriend, so he had to bring her home. And there was a conflict with that. He was a school teacher. Actually, he also was a school teacher. So reading about those stories, it was like, why am I writing poem? Maybe I could write a story too. And that's what helped me. Thank you.
Wow, that's incredible. I haven't heard about it, but I'm sure we are all going to search a little more about it. Okay, so thank you. So moving on
Yes.
to our questions. Girls, would you like to do another question?
Yes, I would like to ask you, when you start writing, what did you hope to achieve? Like, what are the people and the places you imagine? You work with translation and many other things. Like, did you had a plan or something before you start, or it was just something that happened in your life?
Thank you for that question. With writing, as I said before, we all have a story inside of us. And one of the things you learn as a writer is always write something that you would read. So if it is not, you know, um, I would say entertaining to you, if it's not interesting to you, if you don't think it's something you're going to read, then how do you expect others to read it? So, in that terms, it is kind of like, I would say, easy if you get into the habit. Again, I would say, you always have to have a pen and paper. Your project is about literature, basically, isn't it? And before I continue, I hope I'm not speaking too fast for you. Are you understanding me?
Yes, yes, it's okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So it is like this. You have a project to do. Maybe you have a thesis to complete. Maybe you have to write about this experience you're having right now. You break it down. You always have a start, a middle, and an end. Once you set it out like that, it is easy to move because you have your start. So your start is on October the 3rd, 2022. We had a guest. This is what the middle, you explain what happened. The end, you end with a bang, so to speak. So that's how I kind of approach writing. Thank you. Any other questions?
Yes, I have a question. I want to know, where did your interest in graphic design came from? Because
we did some research about you, and we find out that you're a graphic designer. You made some websites, and I'm a little curious about where did this come from?
Okay, I'm gonna put it this way. I basically started as a poet, and as you heard, I have an hearing impairment. So it was just like one day I was like, okay, if I have to live with this, I'm going to learn to do stuff and I'm going to try to do it better than people who can hear. Because going to school, honestly, living with a hearing challenge, it's kind of like something that can be vexing. You're listening to a movie, you don't understand what the movie is about. Or I'm going to put it this way. You're in a crowded room, someone share a joke. I didn't hear the joke, but guess what? I laugh. And then I'd be like, can somebody tell me what that joke was about? And then I laugh again. So with that in life, I kind of learned to do things. Took an interest in website building, graphics design. I'm a computer technician, licensed computer technician. I'm a licensed medical billing and coder. That's a medical field. I'm licensed in doing basically computer stuff. It's just basically a challenge for me because of my disability. Here in the US, we call it being differently able to like prove to myself that I can do certain stuff. So everything becomes a challenge. If you can do it, can I do it? And that's how I've done so much multiple stuff. Thank
This is
you.
really nice. Thank you.
That's so beautiful. I was listening to you, and you said you have a hearing disability. And did you ever have to use sign language? Do you need it, or do you have any interest about it?
Actually, I start learning sign language when my parents first discovered that I was having hearing problem, but I never really took to it. So we have a special school in Guyana just for people who are differently able. As like I said, now they don't use the term disability and everything is so technical these days. You know what offend people, so they say differently able. And I told myself that I wasn't going to go to that school. It's like I wanted to prove to myself that I could still do stuff. So I wasn't really interested in sign language. I learned to read lips and I kind of learned just how to function in life without that. And I've been doing great so far. So thank you.
Um, I read it about you that you mentioned about the sound of silence and how it took a big part of your life, and it's about how you mentioned that you learn how to read lips, and this would have like trouble. Uh, I'm sorry. um, you would have like trouble understanding and being understood in a conversation, and how it is that could you tell us how you deal with it now and how people respond to that issue now, like the reaction of people to it?
Okay, that's a very interesting question. Honestly, if I don't tell people that I have a hearing problem, hearing challenge, hearing disability, they would they will really like realize it. But sometimes I don't understand what they said. So I'll be like, pardon me, can you repeat that? And then they slowly catch on, okay, but she didn't hear what I said. Maybe it's my accent. And then when I finally say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you because these two things are not working well, they'll be like, oh, I didn't really realize that. If you didn't say something, I would have known it. But there are some people who can be downright rude. It happens, doesn't matter what your disability are, they have no patience. So they don't want to repeat themselves. And especially when it was COVID. And unfortunately, where we had to wear these things, so lips are covered. Now, imagine me out there and I'm trying to understand. All I'm hearing, I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Some people did step back and remove their mask, and some people just don't bother. So, you know, I learned to just like function. So, for instance, if you were saying something to me like behind the mask, and you'll be like, hello, how are you today? Maybe I hear hello, you today. I didn't hear how, but automatically my brain clicks. That person must be asking me, how are you today? You understand? So I just fit in the filler word and life goes on.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Here in Brazil, I work as a translator and an interpreter of Brazilian Sign Language and Portuguese. So I have a great history with hearing problems and people who doesn't have all sorts of senses, for example, hearing. So I can relate to all of this you were saying, and we came up with the idea of a plastic mask so it can be transparent. But it's not really adequate though, because it doesn't actually protect you very helpfully. Let's say, let's put it this way. So I see that you have experience by writing and talking about yourself, your hearing problem, your life. And we also searched about your work as a translator. So could you tell us about how can you put your world, your perspective between another world, between another literary way to express yourself?
Can you repeat the last part again for me, please?
Yeah, sure. Can you explain us, talk a little bit about how can you relate your perspective with your translation works? Something like this. Did I say right?
Okay, you mean like being as a writer, having a disability, they're relating to others who have the same challenges,
Yeah,
so
it
to
could
speak.
be.
All right, first thing I tell people, they're to be different. Don't let your disability or your handicaps or your hang-ups define you. I mean, you guys may not have my hearing problem issue, but what I see here is five awesome people who speak Portuguese, speaking in English to me, and sometimes apologizing because you kind of feel you're stumbling over your word. But guess what? I
Yes.
understand you perfectly, and I know English is a language that is not easy to learn. So don't be nervous. Be yourself because there's only one of you. You know what I mean? Tell yourself that's what I had to do. I can do anything I make up my mind to, and I'm going to do it better than the next person. I mean, sometimes we do get frustrated, and having a disability can be a frustrating experience. But like I said, we all have something. None of us are perfect. So, how do you cope with it? You dare to be different. Don't let people, first of all, define you. Yes, I know I have this, but I'm not gonna let you define, because some people, as I said, can be downright rude. Oh, you were deaf, you didn't hear what I said. Yes, I know that, but that don't give you the right, you know what I mean, to
Yes.
keep pounding at me
Yes.
and not giving me the time of the day. I'm a human, I have feelings too. I can do certain things, you know what I mean? So you will find that when it comes to like writing, at any activity, even work and so on, especially, but I will stick to the writing part of it. You actually will find that some of the most amazing writers or creators or creatives are people who have had some form of disability. Check it out and you will find that's true. I mean, like Facebook that we use, Steve Jobs didn't finish college, you know what I mean? They said he
Yeah.
had ADHD. You see what I'm trying to say? So it is what you tell yourself. It starts from inside here. And that's how you kind of overcome your limitations. I would like to challenge each and every one of you. You have a dream. I'm sure you all do have a dream, right? There's something you want to become. Maybe you're working towards that. Maybe at one point you tell yourself, I don't think I can accomplish this. Oh, maybe this is hard. Maybe you even want to be a writer. Why not get a blank book and start? Do not think about what other people will think. Write your truth. Because, like I said, maybe somebody went through what you went through, somebody experienced what you experienced, and they're just waiting for someone to write about it so that they know that they are not alone. Thank you.
Thank you. This is
Wow.
very nice. You said you right now you talked about something about your worth and you're not negotiating your value. I saw that a post on your Instagram that you mentioned something alike. And I just wanted to know, how was your journey to find your self value, self love? Because for most of people, it's kind of hard to find that and to embrace ourselves the way we are. I wanted to know how you managed to do that.
Okay, I'm going to be honest and open with you. It's not easy because you search for acceptance, you search for love, you search for, you want to wake up knowing that someone care about you, that someone is thinking about you. And at some point in time, we will get hurt. But there comes a point in time where you just have to tell yourself two things. Sometimes you have to leave people to win with whoever they think they are winning with. Let them go because holding on sometimes hurts more than letting go. That's one. The second thing you have to tell yourself is those who can grow with you can go with you. And I say that is, have you ever, sorry, yes, have you ever had an experience where you asked someone for something, or maybe it was in your spirit, I would say, to go to ask someone to do something for you or to help you with something or to give you something and they said no? Have you ever had that experience? And then maybe a week or two later, they now are turning around and asking you to help them. And when you said no, they are more upset with you. Hi, I'm giving you the same energy that you give me. I'm not trying to be rude or abrasive, but this is life. So we have to learn how to like deal with people in that don't get upset with anything. That's what I had to learn. Sometimes it's not about you. Sometimes it's about them. They are going through stuff. They don't know how you are making it from day to day. You know, they just know you're right. They just know you're in school. They just know you're successful. They just know maybe you're an interpreter, but they don't know how you get there. They don't know the struggle. So you've got to learn to say, oh, maybe they're just having a bad day. Don't react to it. It's not about me. It's about them, and just leave it be. Life becomes so much more easier.
Thank you. This is very inspiring.
It's so nice to hear you talking about all this stuff, and it's really like a glance of hope for us, especially going through your experience. And I think we really need not only us, but also the people that are watching. All your words are very, as Maria Victoria said, very inspiring for us, especially for the ones that wants to pursue anything in life. Basically, I think your words can fit in many, many places. And I want to know more specifically, I know you are also a writer, but as well as a translator. And in this, like, we know that translating is not only getting a word and putting in another language. You basically have to give a voice, a word, a meaning to all these things that are putting together in a book, in a text, in whatever you are doing. So I really want to know what it's like to give voice to someone else's word in your process. How is it for you?
Okay, thank you. That's a very interesting question. That's basically like writing someone else's story for them. So the first thing you can basically do, it's like, if you're interested in writing, here's what I would suggest. Get a tape recorder. You have elderly family members. When you go to visit or when you are around them, they always have a story, right? They're always sharing a story about years gone by, what it was like back in the days. Have you experienced that? Now, if you take a tape recorder, even your phone, some phone has a voice note, voice memo, and you tape them, you get their words. Now, the easy part is writing in the third person, it is called. Whereas, because autobiography is writing in the first person, you're writing about yourself. I. Now, third person, where you're writing, he said, she said, they said. So you're writing someone else's story. You basically taking it out of their head and giving their interpretation about their life. That's how you basically start it. I understand that maybe translating is, will probably be an issue for you. Getting it, how can I say? Not being able to, not being able to put it together in words. But there is what, after you write, basically just write. Don't worry about the editing. Don't worry about how you write. Don't worry about the story. Write it, because afterwards, when you go back, you know what happens? You automatically find that there is more stuff that you want to fill in. They call filler words that you want to put in. Because if you don't start, a journey of 1,000 miles start with a single step. If you don't start that step, you will never complete that journey. So you have to start it. That's one of the things we learn as a writer. Just start writing and write every single day. Afterward, when you go back, you will find it so much easier because you already have the foundation. Thank you.
Thank you. There was a question here in our chat. Our professor asked, he says, I know Guyana has several languages other than English. What languages did you grow up with, and do you write in all of them?
Answer that question. Actually, Guyana, basically, we are just English speaking, but we call broken language is Creole. It's Creolese. It's a broken English. It's a way of speaking. We say, like, like how Brazil has a capital city and then you have like the countryside. So we say it's like they didn't learn to speak the Queen's English, so they have their broken language. So I will give you an example. I may say, what's happening? I'm asking somebody, what's happening here? And the other way of putting it is, what happened? Do you hear how I said that? Wapen. It's Wappean, wapen. But it actually means what's happening. That's the broken Creolese. And they kind of, it's not hard to break it down because they do understand English, since English is our language. But then sometimes if you want to meet that audience, like if I'm on Facebook on my writers group, I kind of have to speak in the way that they could understand, because that's what they are, without making them feel that I am trying to show off. Let's put it that way, because I know Queen's English, that's what we call it. So it's easier to write like that and be understood. Thank you.
Wow, that's great. Like you said, there's a lot of variation in the English language. How about you take an adventure to learn how to speak Portuguese? What do you think?
Okay, well, if one of you are going to volunteer to help to teach me, okay,
Yeah, sure.
Let's go. We can have a great relationship. You guys should know my email. You guys, you know how to contact me, and I will see because my actually, let me pause here. I'm going to ask you,
Okay.
each of you, a question.
Okay.
Are you interested in writing, or is just this project have you getting to know about writing? I will start with Daniel. Are you interested in writing?
Actually, I have not tried to write because I prefer reading and discussing about that reading, but I'm not as good as a writer as I'm reader. So I have not adventured myself, as I said, to write anything but one or two maybe poems that we have at the university. But I do not consider myself a writer.
Okay, thank you. Mavi, what about you?
Um, I don't consider myself a good writer. I just have experience writing journals and a few poems and a few things that I'm feeling, but it's just like to get off my chest. I don't feel like it's very good and I should like keep on writing.
Okay, I'll come back to you. Said something interesting. Okay, ladies, there. Marina, what about you? Are you interested in writing?
I think I was in a moment in my life, but I think I kind of lost it along the way. I remember like 2 years ago, I was very into it. I used to write a lot, creative writing, and I really like it. But as you said, you have to start and you have to keep going. And I think I let it go. I'm not proud of it, but I think I let it go at some point, and I kind of lost it, the feeling. And I'm very sorry for losing this feeling.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind. I'll come back to you, Giovanna.
Well, I never read anything. Maybe a poem or two. Not reading, just like Daniel. I prefer reading than writing.
Okay, thank you. Thais, what about you?
Well, I'm not a writing person, I guess, but here in college we have this subjects who is, invite us to produce poems to think of ourselves more carefully. So last semester we present our poems, and it was a very nice day. It was a very nice moment that we could share with each other and see the other writers are very. I don't consider myself a good writer. I'm just like Maria. Just sometimes want to write something. There's the chest wants up, so just write because I need to put out of myself. But I think it's a very good, sensible thing because you need to look to things to the other ways. You know, putting words on the paper, how you see the world is something very impressive for me.
Okay, thank you. So you guys all have mentioned writing poems. So is the poem in Portuguese or any in English? All in
Mostly
Portuguese?
Portuguese, I guess.
We did it in both languages, I guess.
Okay. Now, Marina said that she kind of lost it. I'm going to tell you something. Newsflash. You actually never lost a talent once you have it. You just basically stop writing. It's like if you know how to ride a bicycle or you know how to swim, even though you haven't rode a bicycle in ages, you find that when you go back on that bike, you learn to do it. You know, it's just about carving out me time. I know university can probably be time consuming. You know, you have all these projects to do. So my Mavi said she's written poem that basically you all have said the written poem. So I have an assignment for you. We get to that later. My next question is, what's the whole purpose of this project as it relates to you? What's the purpose of the project for you?
For me,
Yeah. Go ahead, Mavi. Tell me what's the purpose of this project. What do you aim to get from, okay, What do each of you accomplish by having me here today as a guest? What is it as part of your studies? I'm sure this is part of your studies, correct?
Yes.
So what is the homework that you have to do after we finish here? Share with me that.
I think it's mostly to understand your creative process, how you get there, and how to overcome things that it's there, and then we while we were searching for you, we found that you're a poet, designer, translator, and then we wanted to know how these things mix together. And I thought it is very, how can I say,
Interesting.
um, it's very rich. Because if you're wondering how to be a translator, you have experience in that, you're a poet, so it's a
Okay.
very rich experience.
Okay, great. So do you have to present like a paper or something? I know your professor is somewhere here lurking in the background, but do you have to present like a paper or something to him about this whole experience of what you learned from it?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a combination paper. Each of you has to present something.
Yeah, I think it's most like in this subject, things are very dynamic. So it's how we search about you, and the questions that we had to write in English. So some of us have a little trouble understanding and writing in English, so we had to learn a few words, and I think all of it's part of it, even the interviewing thing.
Okay, that's very interesting. So, what do you hope to gain? What do you really hope to gain from all of this? Because I have a challenge to each and every one of you. I know your professor know how to contact me. So I'm going to challenge you to do this because it's all part of writing. And basically, you really can't get out of university without writing. We may not like it, but there is no escaping it. Even though we have technology, yes, you can type. You know what I mean? We forgot about pen and paper. Someone, I think, Mavi, you did mention journaling. Do you know that journaling, as you said something interesting, it's getting all the stuff out of your head and putting it in pen and paper form. Maybe it will be private to you, maybe it will be personal to you, but that's actually a form of writing, and people get paid to do that. They call it blogs. In our English, we call it blogs. So you create a blogs, and the same thing that you're journaling about, you put it out there, and people actually get paid for that stuff. You know what I mean? Poets, people get paid for their poem. There are so poetry contests you can enter. So this is my challenge to each and every one of you, since you're so interested, like how do you transition? I want each and every one of you to write a poem about your awesome country or where in your country you come from. Now the poem needs to be 4 stanzas. You know what's a stanza, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. And each stanza has 4 lines. That's my challenge to you. I would like to see. You can write it in Portuguese. I'll use a translator. I will use a translator. I want to see you guys do the best that you can. Game?
Okay.
Challenge accepted.
Challenge accepted. It is interesting because I was looking about the book Silent Hero. Is that how we pronounce? It is Silent Hero.
Silent Hero, yes.
Yes, and then I read that you let your anger gave birth to this miracle that in like 3 months you had written it because you were like taking things out of your head, like you said.
Yeah, because that's basically what writing is all about. You have this idea, you have this story, or maybe you have this life experience, and you just want to, sometimes you don't want to share it, because it's like, with poem, you just have the words or thought process, but it's not something that you really want to share. You just want to write, you know what I mean? And in this way, when you do that, others get to experience that, you know what I mean? So that's where journaling actually started, because that's how I kind of actually started, by journaling, so to speak. So that's something that you could, do.
Yeah, thank you.
That's really nice. First of all, I'd like to say challenge accepted. I will actually try to write that poem, and maybe I can, I don't know, find out that I really like writing. I don't know yet, but soon enough, we're going to reply to you. Another thing, you asked about how we are going to do this dynamic. What do we have to write, to produce from this talk? And we actually have to learn about you, about you, the way you write, the process you have, and also to expand our universe. So we do know Brazilian writers, some of from United States or England, but why do we have to have just a small proportion of the world? So we try, with the help of our professor, to get in contact with you, to learn how it is important to know others' perspectives. So I probably think you know Nigerian writer called Chimamanda, that also talks about her perspective of the life and everything, and she calls the danger of a single story. So we all have a single story about someone or some places that we don't know the whole story, just a part. And this is so dangerous. So the danger of a single story is being broken here, because we are talking to you, we are expanding our horizons. So thank you for participate. Just take a few notes, but I'm sure I'll give a look at everything you said, and I'd like to thank you once again. Okay, so now I give the word to my colleagues to say anything, or our professor, so we can end our live.
Thank you.
Okay.
We want to ask you if you can name some, I don't know how to say, Guyanese authors from Guyana.
Repeat that again for me, please.
We want to know if you can name some Guyana authors.
Okay. Actually, yes, I do have something here. Can you still see me? Are you able
Yes.
to see me?
Yeah,
Yes,
sure.
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
so
yes.
like I said, there is a movie that was actually an author that wrote a book, and it was actually turned into a movie. So some of the authors that I have, we have Ivan van Sertima, and he wrote They Came Before Columbus, which was published in 1977. And this was basically, he was speaking about what happened before Columbus came to the Americas or discovered the Americas. And then we also have John Carew, and he is actually what they call a revolutionary, because he talks about, discrimination and marginalization and gender inequity, fighting for the same cause. Then we have, um, as I said, E.R. Buffett. He wrote To Serve with Love, that was made into a movie. It was a novel written in 1959, and it kind of he talked about his life basically as a school teacher in England and what he had to go through. We also have Dennis Williams. He's an artist, an archaeologist, a biographer, and he's lived in 3 countries, and he talked about his life in these countries. So we do have a lot of other Guyana authors, and there are some that are still writing, but writing seems to honestly be like a lost art where people no longer seems to, I don't know if you find it, the technology no longer really writing books. Now it's ebooks. Everything is online, no longer the page turner, the written word, and so on, because people find they can blog, they can write online, they can create ebooks or on Amazon or whatever, and so on. But we do have some great writers, and there was another one. He wrote there are books about the places in Guyana, the stories that comes out of there. So that's why I say that most writers, most Guyanese writers, some of their story are personalized to their experiences about life.
Thank you. It was let me see if there's another question now. Anybody wants to say anything?
I think we had enough for today.
Yeah. So
They came before Columbus, yes, and to serve with love. Okay.
There is another one that you mentioned, and I forgot to put here, but I'm going to include after we finish here. And I would like to thank you, Marcia, so much for your participation here with us. And you asked like what was the main goal of our activity, and I think basically they're going to have to write a reflection about the experiences they had directly and indirectly as well, because they participated watching other people being interviewed by other groups. And I think the objective of all was to give exactly this idea that nowadays literature is very complex. It's no longer those, canonical works. We are going to be dealing with a variety of people and a variety of experiences. And I think they basically answered correctly what my objectives were. If they couldn't remember from when I explained at the beginning of the semester. But it was basically that we have to hear, like we have to listen to different experiences from different positions, and from that we can get a little bit of this complex system that is our contemporary literature and literature today. So I think it was very interesting to have your perspective here with us today. And so I would like to thank you so much. We are going to have the last meeting of our literary talks will happen on October 26th with American writer Marge Piercy. So I invite everyone to come back and be with us in the future as well, like end of October. And thank you so much.
You are very welcome, and I'm happy to be here. Nice to meet you awesome guys.
thank you so much. It was a
Thank
very
you,
rich
Marcia.
experience.
It was
Thanks
our
for your
pleasure.
time.